Welcome to SSUC. Welcome to Spiritual Seekers United in Community. Welcome to our spiritual gathering for Sunday, May the 16th. Welcome to each and every one of you joining us online today. Joining us from the Edmonton area, joining us from our satellite community at SSUC Saskatoon, perhaps from Toronto, from Saskatoon, from other areas in Saskatchewan, in BC, in the U.S., from wherever you're joining us, welcome. We welcome the entire human family, and all we do seeks to encompass wherever we are and whoever we are, all ages and stages and all colors, all sizes, all cultures, all genders, all sexualities, abilities, all religions and traditions. What does unite us in our diversity is our desire to create a safer community where we all can belong. So welcome. We gather in this place, in this online place, to wonder and to question. We gather here to express gratitude or grief. We gather here in joy, also in frustration. We gather in hope and in fear. And we gather with every human emotion in between. So this is a place to gather in community. And as we meet, we respectfully acknowledge that we do so on Treaty 6 territory here in the Edmonton area and in Saskatoon. And for you, wherever you happen to gather, we know that you share gratitude for the first peoples of your land. Along with my teammate Nancy Steves, along with Deb and Pam and Blair, our musicians, and along with Andrea and Noah, our tech team, we welcome you to this experience of part 6 of our series, Dinner Table Wisdom. Today, we're starting to eat. I'm not sure if you wondered if we'd ever get there, but we're going to start with some appetizers today. And as we take a moment, now that the table's been set, a quiet moment of gratitude, we light our candles with each other. We invite you to light your candles at home. If you have one close by, light one as a way to symbolize our connection with each other. Light one to share that all of our homes and households, whether we're individuals or couples or families, that lighting our candles together when we are physically apart helps us to remember the spark of community and wisdom and fun that we share. So, we light the candle as you do it at home. As we join together with words that we might share together, we can strengthen our intentions. You're invited to read these words, to speak them out loud, or simply listen to these words as I speak them, knowing that in our hearts we strengthen our intentions to live more closely as we pray. We take this time to open ourselves to the wisdom of the senses, the wisdom of our stories, the wisdom of our tradition, the wisdom of our innermost selves. Let's commit to being open to inspire one another in our living so that we can make a difference and reflect our highest values. May we sense the sacredness in us, in each other, and in the wonder of our planet, even as we grieve violence, greed, and destruction. May we be moved to shoulder one another's challenges, share each other's joys, and empower one another to live with love and respect, compassion and peace. In trust that healthy community gives us strength. May it be so.
This is the time, this is the place to refresh and renew in a mindful space. Others around who also have found our connections in life as the common ground. Much wisdom to share for the living of our lives, a place for receiving and offering care, a time set aside to share. This is the time, this is the place to refresh and renew in a mindful space. Others around who also have found our connections in life as the common ground. Much wisdom to share for the living of our lives, a place for receiving and offering care, a time set aside to share.
Could you just pass me my sheet there? Thank you. Yeah. Today's Time for All Ages comes from a story called I Want More. Not so much a story as a sharing of a number of stories from children's perspectives on the things they love and sometimes the things they love too much. This is called I Want More, and it's written by Dagmar Giesler.
My name is Lisa, and I can't get enough gummy bears. I like the yellow and red ones best. But the green ones are also good. And so are the orange ones. The red ones taste a bit like strawberry. The green ones taste like lime. And the orange ones, well, like oranges. After the 10th gummy bear, they all taste the same. After the 12th one, my mouth gets very sticky. And if I eat the entire bag, then... But anyway, I can't get enough gummy bears. Honest.
My name is Emma, and I think swimming in the bathtub is fantastic. But when I'm swimming, I can tell exactly when I've been underwater long enough. I can usually almost count to 20, and then I have to come up for another breath. Once I even managed to count to 23, but I really can't do any more than that.
I'm Tim, and I love soccer rabbits. I can't get enough of them. My first one is my favorite rabbit. I got him from Grandma. She knitted him a long scarf and embroidered his name on his jersey. His name is Fritz, and he's the best striker in the world. I quickly put together my first soccer team. Fritz is allowed to sleep in my bed, and the others have a spot on the shelf above. Suddenly, I had so many rabbits that some had to sit on my dresser, and others on my windowsill, and others on my desk, and under the bed, and on the carpet, and under the chair. Really, I don't have enough soccer rabbits. But where did my favorite rabbit go? I can't find him anymore.
Our names are Amelia and Finn. And when we're together, we love to romp around and play. We race up and down hills, we climb and tumble and dash, but sometimes I get very out of breath. Then I even get cramps in my side. Sometimes my knees shake. But that doesn't matter. We're taking a short break, and then back at it.
My name is Lily, and I have a new jump rope. I like jumping rope. But even more than that, I like everything that glitters. My hair clips sparkle like dewdrops in a spider web. And the rhinestones on my t-shirt twinkle like water droplets on our garden fountain. But I also need a sparkling headband and a glittery bow, and a glittery belt and a glittery backpack, glitter chains, socks, bracelets, and. But how can I jump rope with all that?
I'm Paul, and I think it's great to hug and cuddle. I can't get enough. I love cuddling with Mr. Meow. He's our cat. And with Mom, and with Dad. Grandma wants a lot of kisses. But it's better if I don't tell Aunt Amelia that I just can't get enough hugging.
I am Marie, and I love watching television so much. My favorite TV show is so funny. My brother thinks so too. We laugh until we can't breathe. When the show ends, my brother doesn't want to watch any more TV. He'll go out and play. Now a new show's starting. The other kids are playing outside. I hear them laugh. My brother laughs the loudest. Should I go outside now too? Probably. But somehow, I feel too weak, and another show is already starting. The show's on for a while, until after my brother comes back. He's in an awfully good mood and smells like fresh air. We had so much fun, he said. I wish you'd come along.
When have you had enough? And when is it too much? How do you decide? Do you think it in your mind? Do you feel it in your body? When does pleasure stop and when does a habit begin? Too much of anything isn't so great. I wonder if something is really only fun when a person can say, "Now I've had enough."
We want to share 3 short stories with you this morning. They all come from the Judeo-Christian tradition. The first, an old story of an ancient prophet and a widow. The wife of a man from the company of prophets cried out to Elisha, "My husband is dead, and he has served you well. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elisha responded to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "I have nothing here at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." So Elisha said to her, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your children. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to the side." She left him, and she shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he answered, there are no jars left. Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the prophet Elisha, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left."
Perhaps a little bit out of season, but this is the story told of the lights of Hanukkah. In the century before Jesus, Antiochus IV was in control of the region. He began to oppress the Jewish people severely, placing a Hellenistic priest in the temple, massacring Jewish people, prohibiting the practice of the Jewish religion, and desecrating the temple. Two groups opposed Antiochus: a nationalistic group led by Mattathias the Hasmonean and his son, Judah Maccabee. They joined forces in a revolt against both the assimilation of the Hellenistic Jews and the oppression by the Seleucid Greek government. The revolution succeeded. And now, in cleansing and rededicating the temple, undefiled pure olive oil with the seal of the high priest was needed to light the menorah in the temple. It was required to burn throughout the night, every night. As the Maccabees searched for pure oil to light the menorah, they only found one small flask of uncontaminated oil with the seal of the high priest. The amount of oil remaining in that one flask was only enough to burn for one day, and it would take 8 days to produce a new batch of pure oil. What could they do but light it? And miraculously, it burned for 8 days.
A third story, a food story that comes to us from the Jesus tradition. As evening approached, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "In this remote place, at this late hour, we need to send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy some food for themselves." But Jesus answered, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." "But we have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they said. "Bring them here to me," he said. And then he invited the people to sit down on the grass. Taking 5 loaves and 2 fish and giving thanks, he broke the loaves of bread. And then he said to his friends, "I give these to you," and the disciples gave them to the people. They ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over when everyone had their fill. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, along with more women and more children. In these ancient stories, may we find wisdom for the living of these days.
The starters, the appetizers, the soup, the salad, the breadsticks, the hors d'oeuvres. I've always thought that these were an exciting part of eating out. I mean, at home as a child, this wasn't a thing. If my mom was like yours, we leapt from 0 to 60 at dinner time, right into the main course. It was fancy parties that had appetizers. It was going out for a restaurant meal where you had a whole menu of starters. And doesn't it feel so classy to be exposed to that as a young person? A multi-course meal. How novel. There's a French term, amuse-bouche. It refers to literal bites that amuse your mouth. The goal of an appetizer is to whet your appetite, to be just enough to initiate your digestive system, to tingle your taste buds, to appetize you for what's to come, maybe even to make you hungrier for the food that is yet to come. But because we're human, and there's still that basic and ancient instinct within us to eat whatever we can, whenever we can, because our early ancestors didn't know when they'd get their next meal, that we don't just have a taste. We don't just amuse our mouth. It's also because of our whole food industry and the oversizing of much of our consumer experience that we don't just eat a bite or two, we eat the whole portion. I think perhaps all of us enter into life with that lesson to learn when it comes to appetizers. We have to learn the lesson of managing our way through a multiple course meal. And one of the first lessons we learn is to pace ourselves, to not fill up on bread, to take it easy, and to leave room for the main course, and to know when to say, I've had enough. This isn't, though, just a personal lifestyle choice to say enough and to know when to save room. There are so many pressures and factors at work in us and around us. There is cultural and societal pressure. There are expectations. In our house, we've had a year of learning and experimenting with what food means to us, how we've been socialized around food, and what impact that has on our eating. I personally was taught that there are good foods and there are bad foods. This is the way eating and food and health used to be taught to us. We used to learn that personal choices in terms of eating and exercise would make the difference in how healthy I am. And it was as easy as that. Make good choices. But what if those choices are impacted by a whole world of things at work, in the world? These messages seem harmless at first, but it turns out that they are anything but. We're impacted greatly by body images we see in the media, by a diet culture that sees things in black and white, that gives us so many outdated and harmful ideas. Some of these include myths, like these ones. That we should eat only what is deemed good food and avoid at all costs what we would call bad food or junk food. We've been taught myths like it's only acceptable to live in a slim body. We've learned unhealthily that calorie counting should exert control over our choices and our eating. And we've learned that exercise is for weight control and for shaping our bodies. There is, however, a new era in thinking about all of this, luckily. Good science and good research is now helping us think more holistically about our relationship to food, our relationship to our bodies. For example, that all food can be good food when we understand our relationship to it. We're learning that we can be healthy in any size body. We're also learning that food isn't something to be counted and logged, but to be enjoyed and understood how we relate to it. And we're learning that exercise is something we do and can do because we enjoy doing active things. It's the closest thing we get to playing as adults. That we're active because it contributes to our overall health, not because it gets us to an ideal weight or that perfect body shape. Knowing how we say enough encompasses a lot more than just saying when someone is pouring your drink or serving your plate. It's not saying I've had enough of this food because there are too many calories, but it's saying I've had enough because I'm listening to my body and what it needs. It's saying enough to the negative and harmful ways we've thought about our relationship to food, to our health, that have kept us enslaved to a culture that says, we better start a diet on Monday. To a culture that has us make resolutions about exercising because our gut or our butt is bigger than it was. It's saying enough to the cultural messages. It's saying enough to the messages that suggest we should all be the same. Even if that deprives us of joy. As an aside to this for our Alberta viewers, with so much action and energy around the K-6 proposed social studies curriculum, we should also pay attention to the major concerns with the proposed K-6 physical education curriculum. I encourage you to read the open letter written by a team of researchers and professionals from the University of Calgary Body Image Lab. I'll put a link in the upcoming e-messenger, but in the meantime, do a web search for Body Image Lab letter, and you'll find it. We might let Alberta's Minister for Education know our thoughts if we agree with what we read there. It speaks about the ways we want to be teaching our children about health, about food, about activity. So, as we move to the 3 pieces of wisdom that we shared, they all take a similar approach to this idea of enough. In the story of the feeding of the 5,000, the idea is that the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish in front of Jesus couldn't possibly be enough to feed this many people. But the results are that everyone finds enough to eat, with plenty left over. What was considered enough is reevaluated. The Hanukkah story tells of the Jewish people wanting to reclaim their temple, return to the rituals that defined their faith after so long apart from them. And the only oil they could use would last for 1 day, but alas, it lasted for 8. The prophet Elisha takes a social justice angle when he suggests that a widow who's unable to pay her debts after her husband dies takes the only thing she has, a single small jar of oil, and pour it into multiple empty jars where the oil just keeps flowing and filling empty jar after empty jar until there's no jars left. And then she's instructed to sell those jars of oil, to pay her debts, and to not just pay her debts, but to live her life. As modern readers of these stories, we have to look deeper than the quote-unquote miracles that they are describing. We have to look at their spiritual truth, what lesson for living these stories are trying to communicate. And what I read there in each of these stories is the question, how much is enough? And the wisdom seems to be that enough is much different than we thought it would be. The reality is, enough is a function not just of what I as an individual need at any particular moment. Enough becomes a factor of what is necessary to be together in community. Not enough for one person to have lunch on a hillside, but for everyone gathered to have lunch. That's what enough means. Not enough oil for one candle for one night, where the elite in Jerusalem can appreciate it, but enough for that lamp to burn for 8 days and give everyone in the region a chance to return to the temple, rich or poor, near or far. Not enough oil for one poor widow to eke out an indentured existence as her children are taken away as slaves to pay the debt, but enough oil that she is freed from her servitude, that she may live her life with her children. Enough is about being in tune with our bodies, our needs, our living. And enough is about looking around us and fathoming what it means to pace ourselves, not just in our eating, but in our living. What does it matter if we have a feast before us if our neighbor is hungry? What does it mean to fill up on the appetizer and let the food that's to come go to waste? What does it mean to relinquish our enjoyment of what's before us in favor of cruel, consumer-driven social norms placed on our shoulders of what we should eat? What does it mean to know that enough is a function of our relationships? Enough is always a function of our relationships with food, with ourselves, with others. And so it becomes a question of listening to ourselves and to our community. Let's learn how to say enough to wherever that balance between our food and us has been disturbed. Let's enjoy what's before us to amuse our mouths, to enjoy it without it becoming too much, to whet our appetite for what is to come, and to live in ways that are healthy, not just for us, but for our world. When we sit down to eat the appetizer, let's recognize that it's there for our joy, for our enjoyment, to whet our appetite, just enough to make us want a little bit more. And let's remember that even if we're sitting alone at a table, we are always in relationship with each other. And it will help us to listen to ourselves and each other and answer the question, when have I had enough? So as we work to learn and balance our lives, may it be so in so many ways.
Our relationship with light is much like our relationship with food. It is essential, and it is sufficient. There is sufficient light for each day. The problem is not that there isn't enough food to go around. It's just that enough food doesn't get around. It's not that there isn't enough hope to go around. It's just that not enough hope gets around. We have an appetite for peace. We have an appetite for courage. We have an appetite for love. We have an appetite for hope. And together, we have enough. We are enough. And so we go in the sufficiency of who we are together. That while there may not be an abundance of many things in our lives just now, there is enough. There is enough courage for this day. There is enough strength for this night. There is enough peace for this moment. There is enough joy and hope and possibility. And so we go to share our light, to be enough together, to provide what is needed together, to and for and with one another. And in these coming days, may you find what you need. May you give what you can. May you be well until we see you again. Peace be with you.